Chapter 3. Odysseus tells the story of his encounters with Aeolus, the Laestrygonians, and Circe. Next we came upon the homeland of Aeolus, one dear to the deathless gods. Zeus made Aeolus keeper of the winds, and he can provoke or calm whichever winds he chooses. He and his large happy family live on a floating island. A bronze wall surrounds the island, and steep cliffs rise from the salt sea to the metal wall. Aeolus entertained us for an entire month, and he was eager to hear all my tales of the war with Troy. When we were ready to continue our journey, Aeolus put into my hands a large bag made of ox hide, which contained all the storm winds. With the destructive winds confined in this manner, we would be able to proceed safely and quickly to Ithaca. He tied the bag so securely with bright silver twine that not even the smallest breeze could escape. Then he stored the bag in my hollow ship, caused the west wind to blow upon us, and sent us on our way. We sailed upon the wine-dark sea for 9 days and nights. When dawn shone forth on the 10th day, we were so close to Ithaca that we could see people tending their fires on land. Then my heart felt at ease, and I let sweet sleep enfold me. My limbs were weary, for I had been so eager to return home quickly that I insisted on controlling the mainsail myself. I did not know that my companions had decided that the bag Aeolus had given me contained gold and silver, that I would not share with them. As soon as they were certain that I would not hear them, they said to one another, "Look, how well loved and honored Odysseus is. Wherever we go, he receives worthy gifts. Our ships are already filled with great treasures he took from Troy, and now Aeolus has given him even more gifts. Meanwhile, we're returning with no gifts at all. While he's asleep, let us open the bag from Aeolus and see how much silver and gold it contains." With that, they opened the ox-hide bag, and all the storm winds tumbled forth and blew us far out to sea. The tossing of the ship awakened me. At first, the grief in my heart tempted me to jump into the loud-sounding sea, and so let my shade go down to the kingdom of Hades. But soon my heart counseled me more wisely, and I chose to accept my fate. The winds blew our ships back to Aeolus, much to the dismay of my companions. We put ashore to obtain fresh water, and I went once again to visit Aeolus. "Why have you returned, Odysseus?" he asked me with surprise. "What heartless god is punishing you? We sent you on your way with such a kind gift that you should have arrived home without a problem." With sorrow in my heart, I replied, "My companions brought trouble upon us while I slept, but I know that you can send us smoothly on our way once more, if only you will consent to do so." Then Aeolus spoke words of wrath instead of welcome. "Leave this island immediately," he cried. "You have become the most despised of all living creatures. The fact that you have returned here proves that the immortals detest you, and I may not help anyone whom the deathless gods hate." Then he drove me from his palace. With grief in our hearts, we sailed on. Because of our foolish behavior, not even a breeze would help us with our journey, so each man had to pull his oar. In this manner we sailed for 6 days and nights. When rosy-fingered dawn next shone forth upon gods and mortals, we had come to the land of the Laestrygonians. Here the night is so bright that someone who needs to sleep, no sleep, can earn twice as much pay by herding cattle all day and sheep all night. We could see a fine harbor with steep cliffs rising on each side. 2 jutting points of land reached toward one another at the mouth of the harbor, creating a very narrow entrance from the salt sea. 11 of my ships entered the sheltered harbor waters, where their captains moored them close by one another, since there was no need to fear the action of waves in such a well-protected area. I decided to moor my black ship outside the harbor where the open sea met one of the cliffs. Once we had fastened our ropes to a projecting rock on the lower part of the cliff, I climbed up to a towering height to investigate the area. The land appeared devoid of cultivation, for I could see neither people nor oxen working the fields. Only smoke drifted up from the land. I returned to my ship and ordered 3 of my companions to go ashore and see what sort of people lived here. The men walked along a wagon road until they came to a spring that was clearly the source of fresh water for the townspeople. There they introduced themselves to a maiden and asked about the king of the community. She directed them to her parents' house. Upon entering, they were horrified to see that her mother was the size of a mountain peak. The girl's mother immediately called her husband, who was even larger. As soon as he arrived, he grabbed one of my men and ate him. My other 2 men ran swiftly back to our ship. The king then gave a mighty shout that echoed throughout the city and brought forth a multitude of giants. As they stood upon their towering cliffs, they hurled tremendous rocks upon those of our ships that were moored in their harbor. They speared my comrades off the decks as if they were fish and carried them, dead or alive, back to their homes to eat. Without waiting for the giant race to discover my ship, I quickly cut the cables with my sword, ordered my companions to their oars, and headed out to sea. Our hearts were filled with both joy and grief. We were very glad to have escaped death once again, but we had left to the kingdom of Hades all of our comrades on our other 11 ships. At the next good harbor we found, we stopped to rest. At dawn, I armed myself with sword and spear and went to see if the island was inhabited. I climbed to a high point and could see smoke rising from a building in the wooded area below. I decided that it would be unwise for one person to investigate that house, so I returned to my ship.